Alright guys, how you doing? It's Rabea, I hope you're all well. So this video was requested as per a Instagram post that I put out a couple of weeks ago, talking about, what do you guys want to see on this channel? Any ideas, anything like that? I'm totally open to suggestions and would like to know what you want to see on here, because I'm aware I do a lot of gear demos and then there's vlogs, and I just figured there'd be other stuff you might want to see. So I had some great suggestions. Thank you for everyone that gave a suggestion, and one of those was my approach to writing heavy riffs in the kind of style that I like to write. So I guess modernish heavy riffs. I'm going to give it my best go, and let me know what you think in the comment section below. If you want to see more content on this channel, please subscribe. There's a little bell icon that will give you a notification when I upload a new video. So writing heavy riffs, generally writing riffs for me is like kind of writing lead as well. I kind of try and think of it like a bit of a beginning, middle and end scenario, and these passes might be sometimes really short, like 4 bars, sometimes longer. If you listen to a lot of progressive metal, like Riff, for example, some of their riffs are huge phrases, like they could be 8 to 16 bar phrases before they repeat, and that's a lot of information to take in, but it's in a similar way in terms of the execution and what you need to do is like a guitar solo, especially in modern progressive music. I tend not to do it quite so intensely. I think being cut from the cloth of classic rock and like shreddy stuff like Extreme and things back in the day like that, and a lot of the more just hard rock bands, I like the repetition. If it's a fat riff, I like to hear it a couple of times. Nothing against bands that do that the other way, but for me, I like to feel repetition and get to know a riff before it progresses. So I guess the best place to start is, let's take an example of a riff that I did for Riff Wars 3, the third riff that a lot of people have commented on wanting to learn how to play. But we'll just take that as an example. So in terms of the riff, the way I approached it originally was as just a chord progression like this. So it was that's how it started, and then I was like, that's not really a riff, it's kind of just a rhythmic chord progression. But I liked, because the kick drum pattern in that drum excerpt had that dig-a-dun, dig-a-ga, dig-a-dun, dig-a-dun, ga kind of thing. I was like, that works, so I wanted to follow it, And that's where it started, and I came up with that chord progression, kind of just winged it, and it the way I see it is like it was a chord progression to start with. So I had it's all quite basic, but I then started to expand on it and hear like so there, what I'm doing is I'm opening up not just the root note, then I'm adding like majors and minors to it rather than it just being power chords. And if you've seen my approach to chords video I did a while ago, I talk a lot about having like in a drop tuning, like, and then being able to change that from major and minor. If I turn to the close-up, I can go for minor, for major. And that's basically how I like to go about, coming up with the basic skeleton of a riff to start with. And then, for example, that passing chord, so with that major and minor concept in mind, so we're going minor major, but I added the and it's just adding more harmonic content, but it still wasn't quite doing it for me. So I decided to make it break up the intervals a bit more. I decided to take the root, the major, and then the octave. Add that passing chord, but played up here instead. And then this one. Just the root and then the octave above, the major third. So we had. And then we have. So that would be. And that's just a minor and a major again. So we've got. Add the rhythm back in. And then the last part, go back to the original root again. And then we had. Then. So I was like, I should probably thicken this up a bit maybe. So it was just to go. And when I got there, I decided to utilize the top 3 strings. And then it's quite a stretch, but it's a nice chord. So you want to do like a power chord, add that major, then add the minor third interval underneath, and then so you end up with a like a sus2. So I've got. And then the ending was originally, and I was like, let's make that single notes. And then I was like, or closer together. It still wasn't quite, I wanted more movement, so that's when I added, which is just root, minor third, and then octave. And then I wanted to end on that, so I put it here. So all together we had. And then I was like, I think that works. I think that's good enough for a riff. And sure enough, people really, really enjoyed that riff. And I think it was a good example to show you in this video in terms of approaching writing riffs, because it started out very basic as just a chord progression. And it could be the same for any of you guys that are writing riffs, you know, and you start with the chord progression, or you start with something that you dig the vibe of, but it's not quite getting there. What can you do to change it? Well, my thought process through that I've just shared with you is that I had the chord progression, and then I was like, how can I make this a bit more interesting? Let's break apart the intervals. So example being this chord, I want to make that, I'm going to play that on the D, the G. Then it opens me up my little finger to be able to play bar it. It's the same feel chord as, but playing it here. But I could also go, or, which is just a minor D minor shape. So that was a quick breeze over my approach to how many different ways I can play a chord and spread apart the intervals. So hopefully that all made sense. I was kind of trying to get through it in a reasonably concise manner. But yeah, the point being, find a chord progression that works for you, then try breaking apart the intervals, seeing if you can spread apart the voicing of the chord to make it a bit more interesting, provided it's comfortable to play. And then beyond that, you start getting into singular note stuff. Now that riff in particular wasn't particularly, single note playing, but it gives you an idea of where to start when coming up with riff writing. Now, to progress from that idea, if you just want to talk about writing a riff, Like, I don't know, how about this one? That's a really kind of, it's in a kind of 12/8 shuffle kind of groove thing, and really it was just coming up with something, I like to call it dead tone. So it's not really got a lot of melodic structure to it, not a lot of melodic content. It's really just kind of random notes that sound kind of awkward and dark and heavy together. A lot of chromaticism. And really, what to do there is more about the rhythm and where you're accenting it. Because if that was all palm muted, it still has an effect because of the higher note I'm adding, and where I'm adding it is still giving you an accent on it. But as soon as you palm mute and then open those notes, it's just kind of giving you a little bit more of a jarring rhythmic angle on it. So there's another example of something that you can do to sort of create more interesting rhythmics in your riffs is, you know, the use of palm muting and not palm muting, depending on what it is you're trying to play, as long as it's comfortable. But it can start to create really interesting polyrhythmic effects to your riffs, and that's also a good approach. I think the last thing that I'll probably cover in this video in terms of my approach to writing a riff is to write one on the spot, and this is genuinely on the spot. Just to give you an idea of my approach. So hopefully John can edit this into a way that kind of shows how I'd go about it. So it's not going to be something really incredible because it's right on the spot and it takes me a little bit longer to come up with something cool. But one thing I might start with is going, what kind of thing do I want to do? Do I want it to be a thick, powerful riff, or do I want it to be quite intricate and intense? For the sake of this video, something thick and powerful. So there's my starting block. That's just a rhythm I came up with off the top of my head, literally just now. And that's in 7/8, I think. Yes, it's in 7/8. And there are two variations just there. So you got a chord. Or so I'm already starting to play variations of it, but it's still a bit boring for me. So what might I do to change it is add a little fill in here or there. And if I repeated that 4 times, it would start to sound a bit boring to me. So I'm going to add like a turnaround, if you want to call it that. So, okay, so this is what I've got so far. And at that point, I'll add my turnaround in. So that'll be like a chordy thing or like a chord progression movement. So, we've got some movement there on the turnaround, but it's a little bit awkward to play. So what I'm going to do now is look for a place to play it where it's a bit easier, so I'm not having to move quite as much, unless I want that effect of sliding up to it. So it's a bit annoying, so So it's actually easier to do it my original way, so that was... Because my index finger has to jump in a really weird way to be able to play it on the next string down. So, I don't know how that's been edited down, if it's been edited down at all, I've no idea, but it might have been interesting to see the process whilst I was working it out. And at this point, this is the riff I've got. The only bit that's a bit undefined is the... And I think that's something I can iron out the more I learn it, you know. Okay, let's give it one more go. So you get the idea. It's quite a simple, well, it's quite a simple riff. It's, I guess I don't know if I'd use that in a song as such. I might do, but it's definitely a quick example of how I approach writing a riff. So I really do just start with a rhythm, and then I start to make it a little bit more intricate. And then I add a turnaround, and then for me, that's a riff. And there you go. You add a drum groove to that, add some bass in there, and suddenly you've got a pumping riff that's going to work in a tune. I mean, it depends on the style, of course. This is me talking about heavy riffs. You know, I might do other videos, you know, classic rock riffs, progressive metal riffs, like in the face of the Nameless that I did is more of a progressive metal thing. You know, I think it might be a cool little series. So let me know what you think in the comment section below. Different genres that I could maybe approach. Not all, of course, because I can't play every genre in the world, but of course I would like to give it a go, help you guys out. But that was my approach to writing heavy, modern-ish riffs. So hopefully it's been edited down into something that's concise and works for you. Either way, I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope that answered the questions and it gave some of you guys some insight into writing your own riffs. I'd really like to know what you think, and I'd really like to know if this was a helpful video. So please let me know in the comment section. As always, thank you all for watching. Like, subscribe and share, and I'll see you all very soon.